No opposed? Okay. We can now vote on the motion to approve the minutes of the January 31st council meeting. All those in favor? Opposed? Motion passes 12 to 0 to 0. Constituency reports, starting with Nick.
All right, I will keep things pretty short and sweet for this one. Most of everything that I have to say has been already written in my report, so hope you guys have all read it. No major board meetings to report, to talk about since my last report, although I did meet a few times with the Quality of Life Committee on the Senate. With the student union, the big thing I did was I was the chair of council nominating group. We had a really busy month, a really great month too, because we had our interviews for all our candidates, and I'm super happy to say that we have chosen someone to nominate for council. Aside from that, I've also continued working with the Governance Review Committee. We're not done yet, but we're getting there, closer and closer every week. And we have a lot of fun with that too. And that's about it for me.
Thanks, Nick. Any questions, comments, written? Okay. I also forgot to mention at the start, I'm recording on my phone for the minutes, so if you're like on the other end of the room, just be sure to speak up when you're talking. JC?
Hey, nothing much to report aside from what was included on my report. However, this week we will be having the blanket exercise on Wednesday, 6 to 8. Thank you to those who applied on the Google poll. And we just have to confirm the date. However, I'll let you know by Monday evening which room we'll be having it in.
Questions, comments for JC? Henderson?
Everything is pretty much included in my report. Like I pretty much ended with, it was a good time. So there was, that last Friday there was kind of a Black Student Elective. And we're having another one on the 26th, if anyone wants to come to that one. Just like see what Black students are going to do on campus. And then we finish it off with a games night, so everyone got to chill out and calm down a bit. And yeah, then we moved into constituency elections. It was a good time talking to both candidates and getting to know them. And I'm glad folks voted for people. So, yeah.
Any questions, comments for Henderson? All right. Alex?
So most of what I've done the last month is included in my report, but just to quickly summarize, I participated in Senate's forum on Indigenous course content. There was some very good discussion, but I don't think many matters are actually settled, so it's be ongoing. That also reflects the conversations I've heard in my committee work in Senate. Additionally, I had one student approach me with concerns about a professor, but I've yet to meet with them, so I have no idea what's going to happen with that. And I also participated in the hiring panel for the VP activities.
Any questions, comments for Alex? Mike?
Nothing that wasn't on my report. Nothing needs to be said right now. All I can say right now is that education students are going to their costume period again, so once again you will not see them on campus anywhere. That's okay, they're all going to be busy with their jobs that are not being paid for. But otherwise, yeah, nothing else for me.
Great, thank you. Questions, comments for Mike?
Congrats to all of the education students.
Oh, that was going to be a real question. Thank you.
Any other questions? And Lauren?
I forgot a little bit in my report. So I sat on the VP external hiring panel last weekend, and somebody contacted me on Friday to promote the Vancouver Education Graduate Student Conference. So if you any grad students, there's a call for abstract and proposals. I'll be circulating information to them later on in the week.
Any questions, comments for Lauren?
Is it just for grad students, or is it for students that are going to grad school next year? Because I know a lot of people that are looking at grad school for next year, they would probably be interested in that.
I can certainly pass on information. I assume it's probably just a Zoom conference, but in order to be a presenter, you have to have your proposal and an abstract. And
what about people watching?
yeah, like I can definitely pass along stuff. All I know right now is there's a call for proposals from non-education students for an education conference. So I'm not 100% sure what's going on, but hopefully I can get more information and I can pass it along to everyone.
Any other questions? Science.
Hey, other than regular duties, I don't have anything else to report at the current moment.
Questions, comments, for Daniel? Okay, Joe.
Yeah, so, I guess something exciting is that I found someone to run for business rep and he was selected, so that's woohoo. Anyone who's staying next year, that's fun meeting him. And then I guess not much else to report other than if anyone wants to know what's happening in the business community. The, Women in Business are having a conference this weekend, which is a super exciting event. I hope you guys know some people who registered for it. And then business students can sign up for the closing like Schwartz banquet on April 7th now. That's open to all student faculty and staff. So yeah, there's nothing else.
Questions, comments for Joe? Alright, Brendan.
Nothing too much to report other than what's in my report. Probably the biggest thing is that 3 weeks ago tomorrow, Jack and I met with Elizabeth and Jacqueline just to go over just kind of how first years are feeling and how students and residents are feeling. And I think that meeting I felt was pretty productive, just to voice concerns. Other than that, the only thing that I really think I should touch on, oh yeah, I sat on 2 hiring panels, so one for VP External and one for VP Activity and Events. But other than that, nothing else really.
Questions, comments for Brendan? Molly.
Okay. Yeah, so over the last few weeks, we were actually able to finally have our grand opening of the Indigenous Center, which is really, really cool. They finally named it Iskagidnu. So it means like our home, our house. So that was really, really cool. I also got to participate in a workshop to make like a drum, which was also really amazing because I got to meet a lot of other Indigenous students too. Also, my cousin approached me, who works with another company that kind of like helps like fund like Indigenous dreams and like to help different reserves and stuff like that. So I'm hoping to do something with the center to help empower Indigenous tourists. Yeah.
Questions, comments for Molly? Okay. Then exec report starting with Sarah.
Hi everybody, happy Women's Month. Not too much to report. I know that I did kind of like a point form exec report, so if you have any questions about that, then you can ask now, but not too much to report other than thank you everybody that came to the Waves of Change training yesterday. Emma did a really good job at facilitating it, and it was very fun for everybody who's there and very educational. And yeah, not too much to report on right now on the top of my head.
Questions, comments for Sarah? Okay, Siobhan?
Okay, thank you everyone who came to the feedback session that we did at 2 p.m. In terms of my actual report, I don't really have anything else that's happened since I submitted the report. Mostly I've just been really tied up with committees. But once again, if you do have any questions about my report, then you can just ask.
Patty? Oh, sorry. Questions, comments for Siobhan?
Yeah, same as Sarah Siobhan, nothing really different outside of the report. The highlights right now is checking the budget for next year. So once people are renewable, there will be a lot of meetings with the different groups to see their budget proposals. One thing you take out, we are not going to be doing a 50-50 raffle for no software. Yeah, nothing else different in my report.
Questions, comments for Patty? All right, then Jack?
Wanted to also apologize deeply for being so late. Had some issues with my office. It's been quite the day so far. But beyond my report, yeah, I guess because hockey's been the majority of my life the past couple weeks. Went well see what we can do. Working with, I have a lot coming up in the next couple of weeks, working with players, coaches, students in buildings, and as well as university, X Patrol, and residence life, to see what we can do, looking at how the games went, and maybe we can get a championship game going. Right now, I'm sure you all know it's been postponed. So yeah, it'll be a busy next couple of weeks. As Brendan said, kind of good meeting with student life. And I touched on also the residence review that's going to be taking place in residence in the upcoming weeks. And yeah, that's about all. The rest is all kind of in there, but if you have any questions, please feel free to ask.
Questions, comments for Jack? All right, Keelan?
I'll just touch on what was included in my report. I was at a couple days of house hockey, sort of at the start of this reporting period for 2 nights, and as things were going on, I was helping folks plan and then had to help them unplan their year-end events at the inn, which was a lot of fun. And then there's a bit of an inn shake-up the other week, so I'm now going in Thursday nights to kind of help with the bar manager duties, and then we sort of had to reconfigure the programming and just generally kind of get caught up to speed with the sort of portfolio that I hadn't been involved in before, but I am now. So yeah, just lots of hands-on stuff now.
Questions, comments for Keelan? Sean, right?
Yeah, I guess just to follow up on Keelan, so there has been a change in management for the inn. So I'm taking over as the bar manager. Keelan is also stepping in to do some management duties as well as manage all of the entertainment aspects that we have booked throughout the end of the year. Kira and Logan, our assistant bar managers, are also stepping up and taking on a bit more responsibility, and Julianne is now being involved in the day-to-day finances of the operation. So if you're looking for someone to get in touch with about anything in related, you can contact Keelan and myself. Other than that, just everything else that we're doing.
Questions, comments for Sean? Would someone like to yield time to the gallery? Go ahead, Will.
Is there any sort of hiring process underway for a new bar manager?
No.
Okay, further questions, comments? All right, then we have a student life presentation from Elizabeth and Siobhan. Are you presenting as well? Yeah. So whenever you two are ready, I think we're all set up.
So Siobhan and I didn't get a chance to kind of rehearse this, so we're just gonna tag team and be and walk through this. Hi everyone, thank you very much for having me. Happy to be here and see all of you. And I'm here in my capacity as the co-chair of the Quality of Life Committee, and we have several representatives on the committee here at the meeting. Siobhan is here in her capacity as Vice President Academic. Lauren Viana is one of our reps, as is Nick. And then additionally, Alex is a rep on that committee as well. And then additionally, we have Mark Seguro, who's our co-chair. And there is one other, is there Jeff? Oh, yes. Right, sorry, we're just out of my head. So what we wanted to do was tell you a little bit about the work of the Quality of Life Committee, and in particular as it relates to the upcoming work that's going to be happening under the leadership of Andy Payton, our new president. And we wanted to take an opportunity to let you know about this work that's happening, as well as talk to all of you about getting your advice on how to make sure that the student voice is well engaged in the process, and that the consultation that is leading to the development of a new strategic plan is thorough and meaningful. I think that's the really important part that Siobhan and I wanted to talk to you about, is that students are feeling like there's meaningful ways to engage and connect with the planning work going forward. So I'll stop there and maybe invite Siobhan to say your opening remarks.
Yeah, so essentially I think the purpose of the presentation today is, so we understand that we don't really have time to do a full facilitate a discussion and get all of y'all's feedback in terms of what we're about to present. But there's going to be an opportunity later for students to come and give some more substantial feedback. So even if we don't really have time to go that deep into the content that we're going to be talking about today, there is going to be an opportunity for you folks to be able to express those concerns with other students. So we are going to, I think our plan right now is to kind of give this mini presentation to a bunch of different student groups, and then hopefully collect students from all of those groups and then actually be able to have that substantial conversation. So the purpose of this presentation today is essentially just to kind of give some background into what we want you folks to start thinking about. So when that opportunity for deeper conversation comes up, then we all have kind of just a little more of an idea of what we actually want to go in and advocate for.
Mm-hmm. So something that, are you navigating the slides? Yeah. Okay. So just, we're not going to take you through the whole deck because we circulated in advance. So we're taking a bit of liberties and assuming that you've all had a chance to go through it. So we wanted to show you, I think, just by way of introduction, a little bit about the Quality of Life Committee and who's on it so that you know how that process works, and give you an overview of the strategic planning process as it's evolving through the university, and then talk a little bit about the time frames and then how students would like to be consulted with and some of the opportunities that Siobhan talked about. So, so if you could go to the next slide, Meredith. So basically, the current strategic plan that the university is being guided under ends in 2022. And there will be a new university strategic planning process that's going forward, again, under Andy Haken's leadership. And that is going to have a couple of steps. The first step is really taking a look at where are we in relation to the strategic plan that we're in the middle of, because it's clear that some of the priorities have been met and seen to, but there are still some outstanding pieces that were identified back in 2017 that the university still needs to pick up and bring forward. And so that's the first step, is to confirm what it needs to be done and brought forward in the old strategic plan and how relevant those pieces still are today. But then really take the advice of the community and take a look at what's going on in our context in higher education. We've had quite a swerve with the pandemic. That's going to have a huge impact on all post-secondary, all of society going forward. So our next stage of planning really has to bring that into the context of whatever we decide to do. So within that, the current strategic plan has a number of pillars. And one of the pillars is student experience and opportunity. And it is Dr. Haken's wish that that continue to be a significant pillar. I mean, it has to be because this is why we exist. We're here to create the most positive student experience and create opportunities for our students. So the Quality of Life Committee is the committee on campus that has been established under Senate. And it basically has jurisdiction over all of kind of decision-making and guidance over all the co-curricular aspects of life on campus. So basically it's all that has to do with the personal growth of St. FX students and all of the kind of non-classroom academic experiences of students. So this is the group that listens to students and translates what we're hearing to Senate in the form of recommendations. Siobhan?
Yeah, the only thing I would really add to that is, like, I know that on council we talk about holistic education a lot, and the Quality of Life Committee is the committee that really focuses on that and prioritizes that within even the committee's philosophy itself. And then something that is really cool about the committee is that it has the most student representatives out of, like, I'm pretty sure any committee. I might be wrong, but I'm pretty sure that it's the one that has the most students. So it is super great that we have an opportunity to be able to engage with those conversations in a way that, there's student voices, and we're also prioritizing something that the Students' Union is obviously very, very passionate about. So then if we go to the next slide,
So yeah, Elizabeth already kind of touched on this, but we deal mainly with matters of student life. So those things that are extracurricular activities, student, faculty, and administrative relationships, the programs, student services, physical facilities, inclusion to all students, and then also establishing policies pertaining to student conduct and discipline. And then if we go to the next slide, I believe, oh no, you're already there, is the actual membership. So if you see at the bottom, it's 3 other students selected by SU VP, which is myself in consultation, and then 2 student senators, which is Alex and Lauren. And then there's also an opportunity for faculty members, student life, internationalization. So it really is just pulling from every pocket of the university to address student concerns from a really, really well-rounded perspective.
So we've been doing a lot of work at the committee level, looking at some of the existing surveys that we have. We've been talking amongst the committee. We've created some broad themes for planning and kind of guiding us a bit in terms of where we want to look into further. We've got a subcommittee that's been looking at external lit reviews, and we did have a forum on the Senate, with Senate on student life, just to spend some time helping senators understand what are the conditions that do create an engaged and holistic positive student experience for students. And now we're here with you today just to talk about that we will be coming to Senate with a proposal around how our consultations will go forward. And we want, as part of that, to have your advice as the student union on what that should look like. Again, to have meaningful consultation that represents the constituency of our full student body so that all voices are really heard in this process and we have very clear sense of where people are. So, let's see, the next slide. So the plan is for a 5-year period. And maybe we can skip right to the timeline. What do you think, Siobhan?
Yeah, I think we can go to the timeline.
So the Quality of Life Committee spent some time thinking about planning. We prepared some preliminary approaches to consultation through the Student Life Forum. We're pretty happy about how that went. We got a lot of good feedback in a fairly efficient period of time. We had some good questions and some really strong student leadership. We had breakout rooms led by student leaders who guided that discussion with senators. So in the next number of months coming, we want to do some initial consultation. And the first phase of consultation is pretty broad ranging, trying to find out what people are thinking, what are some of the broad themes, and then the committee members would go away and do some research and prepare a discussion paper with recommendations that we would then bring back in the fall to get some further discussion and advice and mandate going forward. We would be revising that document through a process and sharing it back out and bringing it back for endorsement, and then that would form the basis of our new strategic plan. So that's kind of a high level. So there's a couple of touch points where we start fairly broad, but then as we get the feedback, we narrow down the approach.
Yeah, so just kind of going off of that, in terms of the consultation plan, Meredith, which I believe is the next slide. Thank you. So if you see the first point, or actually maybe it's not right there, but essentially what we're doing is, now that we're in the first phase, it's less structured and broader. Oh, it does say it. Okay, so essentially that means that right now we are just having really open, general conversations with students, whereas come the second and then hopefully the final phase, we have some content to actually work with, whereas we don't really right now because we wanted to consult with students before we developed anything. So that's why these conversations are so important, is essentially these conversations are going to set the direction in terms of the content that we produce from here. So I really encourage you folks to engage with this content and discussion
just because ultimately this is going to be the beginnings of, developing that framework, which is hopefully going to be formalized next year.
So basically, you're designing the consultation plan starting now with your input. Some of the things that the Quality of Life Committee has talked about is there's some opportunities that are coming up through the student satisfaction survey that happens each year, and that is hosted by the student union, and Student Right feels really fortunate to be able to partner on that. So last year we were able to gather a lot of feedback and input on the services that we provide, as well as pretty broadly ask about, culture and student quality of life and what students are feeling about where we're doing well, where we need to address. That was really helpful. We had over 1,000 responses to that in the spring. And that helped us a lot as we were planning to go into the pandemic in terms of some of the services that we heard students asking for. It gave us a really good way to prioritize what was really top of mind in terms of mental health in particular and what we needed to do better there. So that's already been used as a forum, and we have that opportunity again to take a broad survey approach to get input. But after that, some of the things that Siobhan and I have been talking about are some talk back kind of sessions. So Siobhan, would you like to speak to that?
Yeah, so actually quite a few of you were at the Student Life Forum that we had with Senate. And those conversations ended up being super well. They were received really well, I think, from the feedback that we got. And they were facilitated by students, which is super cool. So I'm thinking, we've been talking about doing similar conversations with equity-seeking students, first-generation university students, everybody that we really need to be prioritizing in this plan, as well as our general student body, to really make sure that we have a well-rounded understanding of what we need to be prioritizing in this plan. So definitely reach out to your constituents and start asking some questions. That would actually be super helpful. And then also bringing in different pockets of people who are involved with the Quality of Life Committee, because I think that one of the things that we really want to accomplish is not only get that feedback from students, but also be able to share it with other people who are invested in this committee in a way that they're also coming into it with a maybe a broader understanding of student experience in a way that they maybe haven't heard of it before.
And some of the things that Siobhan and I and others on the committee talked about was where we had a student life forum with Senate. We could have a general student life forum with students, which is really the important one, and using a discussion paper to move students into breakout rooms, so it's not like 50 people in a room. It's more like 5 or 10 people in a room with facilitated discussion on a specific topic, and then gathering that feedback and compiling it and then sharing it back out. So that was another approach that we talked about. And then again, going around identifying some of the specific groups that we need to talk to as well, and would be looking for your ideas on that. So that was about all I wanted to say about the process, and unless Siobhan had anything to add, we'd really like to open the floor for your input.
Mm-hmm.
One thing I would suggest is that if we're going for specifically academic feedback, I think going by faculty could be a mistake. Like just talking within my own constituency as an arts representative, I think there are 16 departments in my faculty, and they have a variety of different issues that aren't represented or even intersecting. Like for example, you have the fine arts program, and they always have concerns at Senate which are completely valid but don't get heard very much. And I can speak personally, I have almost no interaction with fine arts students despite trying. So I think that going by department is really important if we're looking for academic feedback specifically.
I guess if I could ask a question if people don't have feedback, is there any other way that we should be engaging with students that maybe we haven't touched on? We just have a really good plan, Elizabeth.
Maybe,
Yeah.
maybe you guys can, I don't know how much this will work in COVID, but it might be good to like go into residents, like meet people where they are, like and talk about where they are to feel comfortable. A lot of first years probably don't want to just go to a random forum, but maybe just having a casual conversation in residence or meal hall or something like that might be good.
Yeah, kind of building off what Sarah was saying, maybe getting like possibly residence life staff or SUCLs to kind of facilitate a bit of a discussion like within their houses or residents or whatever, just because then it, you know, especially for first years or if someone's a bit more shy, it would be a bit more comfortable just being with your peers rather than in a big kind of forum setting. And also people probably wouldn't be as, I guess, shy to just kind of speak their mind and speak how they're feeling.
Maybe go to seminars if you're trying to go by department, just because then you have like obviously going to res is important because you're getting with a lot of people there, but if you go to seminars, you have a small group of people from each department that probably aren't like they have to talk in class, so like probably wouldn't hold back from saying things. Plus it's like really way more intimate and it's already done for you.
So you're talking about like the honor seminars or
Yeah,
peer
because
seminar
they have some
process?
third years too, so like you kind of get like what could be coming, and then sort of you could get like a reflection from the people who won't be
Yeah.
coming back.
There's quite a lot of survey data as well. So the university just did something called the National Survey of Student Engagement. And in the fall, we also did the Canadian Campus Wellness Survey. So those are two pretty big benchmarked data sources that really help us point out gaps in the student experience. And then, of course, the student satisfaction survey that we will be doing will be geared to really pulling out some of those quality life indicators.
I just have like a hypothetical what if. What's gonna happen if this town hall, like, let's say you get like 30 students, like 30 is not a representative sample of 4,500. Like, are you going to allocate time into making sure, you know, you get a valid representation of the student body? Or is it gonna be, you know, that's all I'm concerned about.
I mean, we've never tried to do this during a pandemic before, so it's going to be, I'm not gonna underestimate but this is going to be a challenge for us. We're going to have to work really hard at it. But that's exactly the kind of question I was hoping to get from this session. Like, we know the obvious ways to do this, but I think if you have any thoughts on how to do exactly what Lauren was saying, which is like, how do we ensure representation? So one of the things that we could do, if there are specific groups that we know, like we could do focus groups specifically and you know, using sampling techniques to try to get a representative sample from specific equity seeking groups, our first generation students, our Black students. You know, we could do that if that is something that you feel is important to do. I mean, my sense is it absolutely is. And then we could do a general town hall. Like, that might be another way of making sure. Anderson?
Maybe ensuring is kind of like a compensation, like an incentive, instead of just like asking students just like show up and just like offer all this insightful proof for free. I thought we've been doing that for a long time. So maybe just like switch it up and just offer something to actually get them to show up. Food's a really great basic incentive. So maybe like start there and then a gift card, I don't know, a free swipe somewhere. I don't know.
Yeah.
Get creative with it.
Yeah. Yeah. Good.
I also really like what you were saying, Brendan, about like meeting students where they are. I think that one of our concerns we had originally is typically we see the same students engaging in these conversations. And typically those are students that, you know, are pretty comfortable with engaging with the resources and the things that the university can provide students. So really figuring out how we can engage those students that aren't typically a part of the conversation, and then also ensuring that we have that equity, which is super important. So I do like the idea of res, and I really like the idea of it being facilitated by students in that residence building. So maybe we could look at like a I don't even know how to train the facilitators, like we facilitate a facilitation training. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well,
Yes. Oh, yes. Sorry.
On that, would you like want to like roll in? Would you want the facilitators and grants to just be like the HPVP or like house council? Or
I think like
the CAs are kind of like a group effort.
I think a group effort, we just always see students engage with this content better when it's coming from other students, specifically their peers. So like there's the students that they know, that they live in the building with. So if we could figure out a way to utilize those students, then I think that would be super helpful.
Yeah, and just like kind of building off this a bit more, like I think one of the biggest things is trying, and I don't know exactly how to do this, but just making sure that students feel or know that they are going to be heard. And I know that sounds obvious, but I feel like, you know, sometimes students don't want to go to these things because they're like, oh, it's, you know, it's just going to be people talking and nothing's going to happen. But I think if students realize, you know, the university is trying to make this a thing, and you can tell the efforts that's being put into it. So I think if students know how much time has been put into it and what the outcomes could be, I think they'd be more inclined to want to go and share their opinions.
Right.
I think if you were trying to get more like Indigenous students involved in everything, I would suggest like going directly to the Indigenous Center and even getting Taruna to talk to other Indigenous students. I feel like a lot of Indigenous students are kind of like scared to express their concerns to like other people, so just because you get a lot of hate for it a lot of the times. So I would suggest like talking to Taruna and then talk to them about it. Thank you.
Also, like another good way of maybe getting folks to come out is just like going back to these things that have already happened before, all these summits, all these past plans. And there's still stuff in those plans that still need to be done. So maybe when people start to see you actually doing those and getting those out of the way, then they'll feel comfortable enough to be like, oh, they're actually listening, things are actually changing, we can actually voice our opinion on things, and things actually happen, because a lot of students feel like they give all these opinions and all these options and nothing changes. So maybe just like showing first and then asking for more opinions would be a great way to go about it. Just like build trust in admin and those two moving, because right now I'm gonna be honest, it's very low this year, but you know, just like a good starting point.
I also just really like Keelan's idea of seminars and things like that, because if we're going to where people are, first and second year students are going to be in residence. Like the Indigenous Center, and I'm not sure exactly what a space like that would be for Black students, but going there, you're going to, I think that's fair to say, you're going to get the best feedback from those communities. But if you want a representative sample, you also need to have people that have been here for 3 to 4 years, and you're not going to get those people in residence. So seminars and that kind of activities where you're going to see those people.
Could you explore a way to like, now that I think Moodle's more used than it has been, just because I have some classes that like with profs that wouldn't have used Moodle last year, but now they kind of have to. Like you could somehow like add a thing in like Moodle for everyone to like fill out, maybe some sort of incentive down the road, but like if they see it like on Moodle and like months later you're like, hey, this is what that form is for, then they might be more like comfortable going to fill it out. And it could be kept, I guess it wouldn't be kept anonymous because it's on your Moodle, but you could explore that.
So just in relation, we had circulated a few discussion questions, and one of the questions is like, what would be some background information? And what I heard Henderson say is that really some background information would be to share, you know, what's been happening at the university, you know, over the past number of years. So just by way of background information to get people thinking about the next number of years, that that kind of a report might be helpful. Is there anything else that you would find helpful to know before going into kind of this broad strokes planning?
I feel like a lot of students, not from a lot, I guess, I'm not gonna just don't really think about it, but a lot of students are really like, who's doing all this stuff for them and who's making all these decisions at the end of the day. So I feel like probably like getting like some kind of document, like it's on the U's website, everyone who's like a part of all these things, but people don't really like check there, so we kind of just like pushing like, oh, these are the people on this committee, these are the people on this committee, this is what these committees do, and this is why you should actually care, because it's these people who are doing these things, So maybe like that kind of background information would be helpful too, so people like have like faces to put to all these different decisions that are made.
Right.
I think that's important in terms of like, we're going to engage with students who might not even know what a university strat plan is. Like right now we're only talking to students who are, pretty involved with everything and with the structure of the university. But figuring out a way to explain to students who have no experience with, student government or university process. Yeah, so.
I was just thinking, going off of what, but now I think I might have lost it. Oh no. Just maybe looking at the last strategic plan and kind of what went on during the last 4 years or 4 or 5 years, whatever it is, and then kind of talk about like, we did this in this sort of way, like this is what it looked at like during this direction, but we want to do more of a direction that's student focused. So then kind of showing the differences and showing like how things are going to improve might be good as well. Might be a cool way to give more insight and give more background knowledge on where we came from and where we're going.
Mm-hmm. Brendan, did you have your hand up?
No.
Okay, what?
Kind of building on what Sarah said as well as what Henderson said before. You have to acknowledge that students have already said a lot on this issue, and not all the things that this has happened accomplished. We're going over like what has happened in the past strat plan. There's a lot of advocacy exhaustion. So just showing that you've already made a list of here are the concerns that we've heard, we're planning on adding these. Do you have anything to add, or do you have any solutions that you could see? I think would be kind of helpful to know that people, like you are hearing what students are saying.
Yeah. Any final thoughts?
Then I think we're done.
I think we're done.
But thank you everyone really so much for engaging with this. And yeah, I mean, there's going to be a lot of opportunity for consultation, so we'll probably be back. But maybe after this we can just identify some action items and then delegate appropriately. Okay, sounds good.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, next is presentation from Andrew Beckett. Would you like me to do your slides for you?
No, that's okay, Meredith. I'll let you off the hook. I assume everybody's got the slides that were circulated, and so they're there for your reference, but I'll just highlight a few things and then allow more time for discussion. So in terms of the information that was presented, first of all, in relation to our current financial year for the university that ends March 31st of 2021, so coming up in a few weeks' time. If you go back to June of last year when we were first faced with the pandemic, we ran 3 scenarios of what our finances would look like. And it ranged from a loss of $7 million to a loss of $30 to $40 million that we were potentially looking at for the year. Through a very, throughout the summer, we sort of worked through that a little bit and picked one scenario that we were going with which everybody's familiar, that we chose to do a lot of face-to-face program delivery and have ourselves open for business in September. We anticipated under that scenario that our loss would be somewhere in the $7 to $10 million for the year. And as we looked at the results at the end of September, that's where we were sitting. We were sitting at about a projection of about a $7 million loss at that point in time. When we've taken a look at it now at the end of December, based on our actual results to the end of December, through to a variety of circumstances, we're actually looking at breaking even for this current fiscal year, which is quite a remarkable turnaround. And I can tell you from my standpoint, it was quite a shock when we started taking a look at it and realized that we potentially were going to break even. A big reason for that was that we got close to $4 million in funding from the province to help us, one-time funding from the province to help us with COVID-related costs. We did better on tuition and fees than what we anticipated. We actually ended up seeing our tuition and fee revenue basically come in close to what we'd anticipated in the budget pre-COVID. Bit of a difference in terms of the split between full-time and part-time, so we had more part-time students, a few less full-time students. But the overall revenue came in quite good for the year, so we were very pleased with that. And then we had things like the travel restrictions helped us in terms of costs. Things like the athletics programs being canceled for the year saved us money. A variety of other cost savings across the university that resulted in us coming in with a break even for the current fiscal year. So again, very pleased with that result as it now stands. Switching gears now to our next budget for 21-22, so starting April 1st, 21. That budget will be going to the board next week. It's March 22nd, I think it is, Nick. It's Monday of next. It's a week from tomorrow.
Yeah, the 22nd
is the board meeting that's going to be considering the budget. The budget that's going to the board has a deficit of $4.3 million. Fair to say that our challenge going into this coming year is one of revenue shortfall. Our expenses are pretty much in line with where we've been the last number of years, but we're really being hurt on the ancillary services side right now with what we anticipate, and we're not sure yet where this is going to end up, but we anticipate a continued requirement to only have single rooms in residence. As a result of that, we lose about 350 beds. In residence, and when you operate residences, there's an awful lot of fixed costs associated with it. So if they're going to be open, the differences in costs, if you've got 300 students more in residence versus where we are right now, is not that much different. So that loss of revenue, that loss of beds, is basically straight to the bottom line. And with less students in residence, it means that there's less students buying meal plans, so that our food service revenue is also impacted. So our budgeted shortfall going into next year is basically 100% related to ancillary services and that loss of residence and food service revenues, plus some conference service revenues as well. I provided in the presentation that went around an overview in terms of some of the key budget assumptions. Our government grant, we're anticipating that our government grant will go up by 1%, as it has done in the last few years, and that's an agreement that is in place with the province, so we're hoping that continues on. As far as enrollment goes, for budget purposes, we put in that we anticipate our enrollment going up by 100 tuitions. Now that could be 50 international students or some combination thereof, but we're anticipating an increase of 100. Based on what we're seeing right now in terms of enrollment and application trends, we think that we'll exceed that. We're hoping we exceed that because we needed to close that shortfall, but so far our applications for the fall look really strong. Mentioned about ancillary services in terms of, again, we're anticipating single rooms right now, but we have meetings starting this coming week with the province that we're hoping to get some loosening of the requirements that we might see double rooms in residence this fall, with an anticipation that everybody that wants to have a vaccine will have had at least a first dose by the end of June. By the fall, a good number of people will have had 2 doses. We think there's a good argument for introducing at least some double rooms back in residence. So we're going to have those discussions over the next little while with the province. We're anticipating travel restrictions will continue through until at least December, so that'll save us some money as far as the overall travel costs for various different university operations, and we've built that into the budget. Provided in the presentation that went around some details in terms of individual line items that are included in the budget. I guess a couple that I would highlight is that in the academic area, We have proposed a new equity, diversity and inclusion position that would be in the academic area to particularly look at some of the academic-related challenges that have been voiced by our students over the years in terms of that in-classroom experience and the sense of belonging they have in the classrooms. We have actually just recently heard that we did receive the funding that we had applied for that position, so we'll start that process before too long to get that position in place. So we're going to be looking for a new dean, or it's in the process of looking for a new dean of education. Current dean is going back to the classroom after I think 2 terms in the dean's position, so there's a search underway for a new dean of education that's built into the budget. Just trying to think if there's there are a couple of areas that I've mentioned these before in presentations to the student union. Concern that as much as we've got a deficit, that there's still not enough funding in the budget for things like repairs and maintenance of our facilities. We have about $750,000 in the budget for repairs and maintenance of buildings that have a value of something like $500 million. We should be budgeting somewhere $3 to $5 million to take care of the core needs of our buildings. We simply don't have the money to do that at this point in time. The other area that's an increasing concern for us and that we've got to spend quite a bit of money on over the next few years is a refresh of our technology software. We want to do a complete refresh of it. Our student information system, we need to move to probably cloud-based as opposed to it being housed on the university side of things. And there's a lot of new technology tools that we want to make better use of. And that's going to cost us somewhere in the order of $4 to $5 million over the next 3 to 5 years. So we're trying to gradually build up some money in the operating budget to be able to address that. So that's the operating budget. I guess in terms of addressing the shortfall that's in that budget, we've got 4 identified actions that we're taking at this point in time. One is that we'll keep our focus on recruitment and retention of students, that we're hoping that results in higher tuition revenues than what we've got budgeted for. The second is our lobbying efforts with the province in terms of trying to get double rooms. If we can get more students in residence, that'll help fund the shortfall. The third is cost containment, that we'll continue to make every effort possible to keep our expenditures below what's in the budget. And the fourth is that we'll be lobbying the province, hopefully for some one-time money going into this current year to give us some funding and support for that loss of revenue that we're going to be faced with. We know their finances are tough, so I'm not sure how successful we're going to be on that one. So that's the budget for next year. A couple of things on projects. Mulrooney Hall, after we're only, I think, 2 years past the completion date, but as of last week, I think we are actually complete Mulrooney Hall. We had the final acoustic testing done on one classroom that wasn't compliant, but it took us a long time to get to completion, but I think we're there now. Which has been great to see. The Alumni Plaza, the flag area, is complete. The only thing we've got left on it is to enhance the lettering that's on the stone. We're going to do a black black lettering on it so that that stands out more on the stone, but that area is now complete. University Avenue renewal is basically complete. The only thing we've got left is to put some grass down as soon as the weather gets better, so that'll complete the University Avenue fix up, and they're working on crosswalk lighting right now, so that should be complete soon. For this coming summer, there'll be a renovation done at Morrison Hall, the meal hall area. New furniture, new flooring. Some of the eating areas are going to be changed around based on feedback that we got from students in terms of things they were looking for, a bit different in the meal hall. So all that work's taking place this summer. Plus the meal hall will be air conditioned, which I think will be better for certain times of the year, because that's been a complaint that we've had from students at different times in terms of the climate in the meal hall. So that'll be an improvement. We continue our fundraising efforts for the Center for Innovation and Health, which will be housed where Lane Hall is almost still there. Lane Hall's in the process of being demolished. I think you'll see walls starting to come down before too long. I noticed the ceiling is gone now, so the walls will start coming down probably in the next few weeks. That we'll start to see that basically being removed. We're also working with the town of Antigonish on the possibility of establishing a central heating plant that will be powered by electricity through the town. If we're successful with the funding application the town's made, it will move Antigonish to possibly being one of the first net zero communities in the country. So we're keeping our fingers crossed that that'll be successful, and we think that'll be a big plus for the area and for the university to be part of that. The other big one we've got on the go is the Accessibility Act. Came into place a couple of years ago. We're just in the process of forming an accessibility committee. Got some great applications, a lot of student applications for that committee, which was great to see. So we have to have an accessibility committee in place, and we have to have an accessibility plan completed by April 1st of next year. So it'll be a busy year to go through and get some pieces in place for that accessibility plan. And then I left the sort of highlight for last is that starting September 1st, there will be daytime parking fees. We've had overnight parking fees for the last 2 years, and starting September 1st, we will have daytime parking fees. So that will be, parking will be enforced from 6 a.m. to 6 p.m. daily, Monday to Friday. The revenue is not going into the general revenues of the university. It's being kept in a separate fund, and it is money that will be used solely for upkeep of the parking areas and some of the streets. They're deteriorating badly in a number of areas, and so we're keeping a separate set of monies to go for that. And this has been in discussion for at least 4 years. We were supposed to implement daytime parking fees 2 years ago when we implemented overnight parking fees. But then we had Mulrooney Hall construction in the middle of the campus, and so felt that wasn't a good time to do it. And then we had a little thing called a pandemic come along, and so we felt we'd probably delay it for another year because of that. But we're now ready to implement for September. So that will be coming into place for that. And with that, I'm happy to entertain any questions. Sarah?
Just the only question I really have is just talking about the parking fees.
Shocking, really.
Is there going to be any, perhaps maybe like the off-campus parking that's by International House or the ones that are up by the garden? Are those going to remain non-paid for? Just because, like, I understand and I know that there's kind of a push to become more of a walking campus and for people to be walking on campus and not having all the roads, but there still are going to be people that probably can't afford that, and maybe just to have one option for people that they can park, maybe even if it's a little farther away from campus, to have that. I just think that would be a really good option to have that as well as, you know,
Great notion, but no.
No?
All parking is going to be required to be paid for, and again, it's to upkeep a lot of the lots both. And you're right, part of our push is we're trying to push cars to the perimeter of campus.
Yeah.
And part of the money that we're raising is to develop parking areas that are on the perimeter of campus. So if we tried to designate some of those as being non-paid, then all of a sudden I'm going to have everybody wanting parking areas that are non-paid, so all of them are going to be paid parking areas. Spread it around.
So you say that we're trying to move parking to the perimeter of campus. As of right now, there just isn't that much parking on the perimeter of campus. So what areas are you going to be designating or creating?
Yeah, there's a few different options that we've got. I mean, going back 2 years ago, we expanded the Lane Hall parking lot, so that's kind of on the perimeter. There is a spot next to Riley Hall that could be developed for a parking area. The West Street parking area could be significantly expanded beyond what it is. Again, properly done. Not really at the perimeter, but the parking that's by Powers and Summers, that's a gravel parking lot right now. If it was paved and properly lined, we'd get more vehicles in there. So there's a few areas like that that we're looking at that are sort of on the periphery. And once we get the Center for Innovation and Health, 42 West Street, where Human Kinetics is right now, the old municipal building will be coming down, and so there's a possibility for more parking across that side. So there's those types of things that we're looking at. Sorry, another question?
Yeah, my second question was, it's only going to be day-by-day parking, or there's no opportunity for people to kind of buy like once at the beginning of the year?
Yeah, no, the way the fees are going to be set up is there'll be an annual fee or you can pay for a term, or you can pay daily. So they're going to be the three options that are available. And again, students, the largest block of students have been that use use parking in the overnight parkers, and they've been paying for the last 2 years. In fact, our problem is we've got too many students that want to buy overnight parking passes for the spots that we have available. It's because we've got a limit of about 300 to 310 that we try and keep it to, and I think this past year we had about close to 350 people apply for the overnight parking permits. So, daytime-wise, we're looking at, I think it's about 650 to 700 students that use daytime parking, and they again, they'll have the option of buying either for a term or for the whole year, or if they're only here incidentally, they can buy daily passes as well. $120 million budget, and you see parking. The same thing happened at the recent faculty meeting. All everybody wants to talk about is parking.
Sorry, I guess what my question is.
I should go for it.
So you said that the parking was delayed because COVID happened.
Yep.
The implementation, is COVID not still happening?
It is, but we're on the downside of it, quite frankly. I mean, we're expecting in September we're going to be back to close to we're expecting 90% plus face-to-face classes in the fall. We're at 75% now. We delayed it this past year just because we didn't know what September was going to look like. We're a lot more comfortable what September is going to look like as far as our operations go this coming September than we were last year.
It's really awesome. It's just, tuition's increasing, people aren't getting summer jobs, prices at St. FX I say this as someone who's now with extra motivation to be out here by September. Prices are going up here, it's just doesn't really seem to have any sort of light at the end of the tunnel right now.
I appreciate the concerns from that standpoint. I mean, the parking fee is a user fee. If you don't have a vehicle, you don't have to pay it.
Great, thank you.
Are there any other questions? Then we can move on. Thank you very much, Andrew.
Thank you.
So next thing is selection of the Jason Simmons Memorial Award. As I said at City Council, I did forget to give you all paper for the vote. So can you just raise your hand if you don't have paper in front of you that you can use? And I'll give you paper if you don't have it.
Mayor, did you hire a deaf vote?
No.
Put that away. Put that away.
You can just rip it into the
Does anybody else need paper?
I have paper.
Sure, yeah. Would you and Jason Simmons first? Thank you.
Do you have paper? Yeah. Okay. All right, last call for paper. Do you have paper? All right. So just a reminder, you folks, Jason Simmons the Jason Simmons Award is the award to recognize a member of council who enjoys life to the fullest, both socially as well as extracurricularly, not judged on academics, but rather enthusiasm, energy, and X-spirit displays throughout his Revere community. So it's different than the graduating student one, and it's for a member of council. So we can open the floor to nominations now. Tracy?
Okay, for the Jason Memorial Award, I'd like to nominate Sarah Elliott as a recipient, based on her 2 years of working with the Students' Union. Yeah, she's done a great job. I've seen great school spirit in her, and she's been able to properly execute her tasks while working with the youth. So,
thank you. Brennan?
I was also going to say I'd like to nominate Sarah, just because I think she's really had a big impact this year. This has been a pretty tough year, I think, for students, and she's put so much time, effort, and just how nice she is. She always comes to council. She's always so nice, except for when she spilled water on me at training yesterday. But that's okay. But yeah, no, I think Sarah's definitely deserving of this.
Any further nominations? All right, then we can move to a vote by secret ballot. So just take your little piece of paper, write a name down or write abstain, and then fold it up and just send it my way. Or I guess I'll come collect them, but it's the table.
Oh, yeah?
It's very urgent.
Oh, I kind of fell for it. I felt like helping.
It's like, how it compares to like,
behind us.
makes it sad jokes, kind of, it's like, oh, this is really good, it's like office life sucks, or it's got 40, and he's miserable. It's essentially like.
Okay, next thing is the selection of the Burks Award. So, this award shall be awarded annually to a graduating student for outstanding contribution to student government. The Students' Union Representative Council shall nominate and then elect by secret ballot. So this is the graduating student who has contributed a lot to student government. We can open the floor to nominations now.
Me and also JC both wanted to nominate Tammy. She's worked the past two years with the Students' Union, both as Board of Governor representative and the Student Government Dissent representative. Tammy's an amazing advocate. She's graduating this year, which is honestly heartbreaking for anyone that knows Tammy. She's amazing, and I miss her. I don't even know who she is today, but she's really great, and she's also graduating this year.
I'd like to nominate Emma Kuznick. She was last year's VP academic, and at least in my view, she's one of the most outspoken, if not the most outspoken, advocate against sexual violence on campus. I think she's an appropriate person.
Yeah.
Yeah? I'm going to nominate Sanjita, I don't know how to say her last name, Sanjita, because she is an RO this year, and she's been, or she's CRO this year, and she's been great in supporting Meredith in all the elections that we ran and are going to run. She's helped me tremendously with the Student Resource Center this year and years prior, and last year as international representative. Really rocked it with the International Society and making sure decisions were heard. So not just this year, but in years prior, she has been absolutely stellar student government and student life on campus.
I'd also like to nominate Hattie Strickland. While she didn't necessarily participate in council, she has been a force on our campus for the last number of years, advocating, against violence of all types, as well as being instrumental, along with Emma, in establishing the PSP. So I think she's definitely worthy of a nomination.
Any further nominations? Okay, last call. All right, then same thing. Our options or the nominees are Tammy, Sanjita, Addie Strickland, Amerila, and Emma Kuznick. So write any of those four names or abstain on your ballot, and I'll come collect them.
Meredith,
Yeah.
just to clarify, does the person that presents the award have to be the majority, or is it just a set, like?
No, it'll just be the person who receives the most votes. I'll come back from there. Okay, Mayor. Alrighty. Thank you all. Next item of business.
Okay, I move to elect, never mind.
Yep.
Okay, yeah, I move to elect Naomi Stokart, how do I say her last name, sorry?
Stokart.
As the chair of council for the 2021-2022 year.
I second.
Discussion?
You can.
Yeah.
Oh, so should I move to do that? I move to go in camera for this motion in particular. I'll second.
Okay, discussion on the motion to go in camera?
I think it's a good idea.
Further discussion?
Call the question.
Thank you. Okay, anyone opposed to calling the question on the motion to go into camera? Okay, we can now vote on the motion to go into camera. All those in favor? Opposed? Okay, motion passes 12 to 0. For the members of the gallery who don't know what that means, it just means we're gonna close the room and not make it a public space anymore. So you do just have to step outside for this, and we'll call you back in. Yeah.
And if we can stop the live stream?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay, so I guess to give the abbreviated version of what we discussed in camera, so we are moving to nominate Naomi Stobart for the chair of council position. She gave a very strong interview and application, has great positive attributes, legitimate experience for the position, and very strong ideas about elections. And as a committee, we feel like she is a proper choice for the spot.
Further discussion?
We'll call the question.
Anyone opposed to calling the question? Okay, we can now vote on the motion to elect Naomi Stobart as the chair of council 2021-2022. All those in favor? Okay, opposed? Abstentions? 1. Okay, motion passes 12-0 to 1.
Meredith, just for the minutes, should that have been 11-0 to 1?
11-0 to 1. Yep, thank you. Okay, next item.
I'll move to ratify Sophia Fabiano as VP Res Affairs for 2021-2022.
I'll second.
Move it to go into camera.
Discussion to go on camera.
There
Sorry,
you go.
guys. Would someone like to call the question on the motion?
Yeah, so as some things we talked about, camera. Sophia had a really incredible interview. With a unanimous decision. So it was a pretty long deliberation process, but overall she really answered all of the questions really incredibly. She talked about her experience as an SUCL, as a Housing Council member, and the Executive Assistant Director of Intramurals. So she had really great experience. In her interview, she talked a lot about her interpersonal skills and just kind of her ability to work in the team as well as an individual. She has a lot of great ideas moving into next year that she came really prepared. And her experience having lived in residence last year as well as this year during the COVID pandemic gives her a really interesting perspective on students and residents and how to really advocate for them. So yeah.
Further discussion? Would someone like to move to call the question? Thanks, Alex. Is anyone opposed to calling the question? Okay, we can now vote to ratify Sophia Fabiano as VP Residence Affairs 2021-2022. All those in favor? Sarah? Opposed? Okay, motion passes. Mike sent me his proxy vote as a yes, so 12 to 0 to 0. Next item of business.
I will motion to ratify Kara, sorry, I'm not going to read your name.
I think Brendan is next on the agenda.
Oh, sorry, yes, I'll motion to ratify Brendan Roberts as VP Finance and Operations 2021-2022.
I can second.
Thank you.
Motion is on camera.
Thank you.
Oh,
I'm
sorry. Get out of here. I'm so sorry.
Okay, discussion on camera.
Oh no. What if we just voted no?
We wouldn't. Further discussion?
Oh, are we doing the summary of our Sundays?
Yeah.
Okay, cool. So, the summary of our Sunday, when we interviewed Brendan, he came with the most enthusiasm. He really did his homework and researched the position and really what will he be managing as in this position. And we thought he'd be the best fit, specifically for working with Julia. And so, that's why we chose Brendan.
Any further discussion? Would someone like to call the question?
I'll call the question.
Thank you. Anyone opposed? Okay, we can now vote to ratify Brendan Roberts as VP Finance and Operations 2021-2022. All those in favor? And Mike sent me his proxy vote, which is a yes. So all those opposed? Abstentions? Motion passes 11 to 0 to 1. Last item on the agenda?
I'll move to ratify Tessier.
It's Kira.
Kira?
Yeah.
Tessier, right?
Yep.
Okay, good. VP Activities and Events 2021-2022.
I'll second.
Lovely.
I will motion to go into camera.
Thank you.
The last time?
Okay, discussion for going into camera. Question?
Just makes sense.
Okay, further discussion?
So, kind of summarize what we talked about, first I'd like to apologize to Kira for reading her name wrong the first time I read it. But as a representative of the panel, we found Kira to be the most qualified candidate because of her prior experience working in the U and specifically the Inn. Clearly a lot of the portfolio is going to deal with the Inn, so the kind of knowledge and experience she has dealing with those situations is going to be invaluable. We also found that she just had an incredible interview. You handled the questions really, really well, and you were really prepared. More than other candidates, you had a knowledge of the organization and kind of the ways you'd have to navigate and delegate your responsibilities, and we really appreciated that. So the panel found you the most qualified, and I certainly do as well.
Further discussion? Would someone like to move to call the question?
I so move.
Thanks, Daniel. Anyone opposed? Okay, seeing none, we can vote on the motion to ratify Kira Tessier as VP Activities and Events 2021-2022. All those in favor? Okay, 11 yeses plus Mike's by proxy. Anyone opposed? All right, motion passes 12 to 0 to 0. All right, well, thank you all for coming today. It's a very exciting meeting. Congratulations to everybody who got ratified/elected. And I think with that, we can adjourn. If someone would like to move to do so.
So moved.
I'll second. Thank you. We can now vote to adjourn the meeting. All those in favor? Okay, motion passes 11 to 0 to 0.
Great hustle, everyone.
That was a long one.